Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me today. Today, I think I will show you something really interesting, how we use AWS services and data mesh principles to sort of help one company to transition from data chaos to, data excellence. And that company's question is Norwegian Air. They like to call themselves as first low-cost company that had transatlantic routes. So that is about them. And now let me introduce myself. Opa, will this? Yeah, I'm Bojan Sovilj, CEO and founder of CloudWalker. We are an advanced AWS partner company from Serbia, Belgrade. They like to consider us as an AWS data specialist, but we believe technology should solve people problems, and that's why we first try to solve business problems and then to choose tools. Our credentials: 5 AWS service validation and 60 plus certifications. And me, I'm proud to be Golden Jacket, but Golden Jacket is responsibility to give back to community, to help others learn, and, to help people traverse the same path I already do. And one thing is very important. If I can do, believe me, everybody in this room can do. Now let's see what is agenda for today. First, we will speak about enterprise data challenges. Just one question. Who work for enterprise company? Like big company, enterprise company? Nice to know. So what are enterprise data challenges? I believe you will find something in common with your company. Then what is data mesh in Airline? I will speak about Airline and, key terminology of data mesh. Then we will go through core AWS principles for scaling. Who was on Anton's presentation will kind of find very interesting. He asked you, if I correctly remember, do you work in console? I was wondering to ask you the same question, but I will not. And then we will go through data analytics workflow. As you all know, data analytics workflow, we largely consider that to be ingestion, transformation, and then reporting. And then I will just give you one slide, which I call complexity in a slide, where I will try to give you just one overview of all services that we use and how they act in mesh. So that is maybe the most important thing. So you can take it as a, as a thing for this presentation. And later we will go through key results, and I will give 5 minutes for your questions. And let's go for enterprise data challenges. So, no laugh. Yeah, but enterprise data challenges, those enterprise companies always is saying this is fine, while nothing is fine. Number of data sources they do have, you will see in the next slide, number of data sources they do have is, going exponentially. Number of people that are working with data is still very small. But let us go through real problems. So, what are real problems? When we start working with Norwegian, the first question was how many databases you have. And then we come to 23 first month. And then we ask how many data engineers do you have? And they say 4. You understand? 4 data engineers, 23 databases. No, we had 40 databases. We have 100 data sources, but 40 databases. And only 4 data engineers to scale. So that is it. Central team bottleneck. What is the problem with central team bottleneck? You request something for them and then you wait. And you want your analytics to be real time. Impossible. Data quality issues. What is data quality issues? Seems like in enterprise, everybody is speaking different language, Like in airlines, they have a term which is called PAX, number of passengers. So for finance, PAX is number of bookings sold. If you are, flying for free, then they do not count you, Customer services is number of people that are safely come to their destination, which is, again, totally different than finance. or aircraft operations, which is number of people they care about load, fuel, etc., and they will just count number of people that are, checking for flight. So totally three different things. And when you start with reports, so managers do receive reports saying same thing, but different data. And that is crazy again. And then scaling problems. Of course, central team cannot scale. You know what's interesting with airlines? It's so terminology heavy industry, and when you speak with data team, find that you are losing yourself in translation. Your data engineers are SQL experts. They do not understand terminology from aircraft, They do not care about it. And then you are losing your time, on that endless meetings where you speak about what is aircraft, what is important, etc., where you try as a business people to articulate what is important for your data engineers. And then cost impact, of course, all the things that we do, without proper organization tends to be very costly. At the end, K metric is that average time from data request to delivery was 2 months. For industry that want to have business decisions in real time, they are just understanding that they are lacking 2 months. How we solve this problem? So, idea of this presentation is I would like to finish with this slide, but this is all the thing that we do. Look, you had on left side, you had a problem, that is that central data team, and 5 of them, let's say. And then revenue accounting, aircraft operations, airline planning, customer services, ground operations, all sort of different departments, but let's start speaking data mesh terminology, different domains are sending requests to central data team, and then those guys are slowly becoming bottleneck. Remember this doggy few slides before, that can be central data team. So what we implemented is this central team data bottleneck. We just changed a thing, and now we have decentralized data ownership. What is the kind of crucial change here? That domains starts to be responsible for their data from start till end. From documentation about databases, security, who connects, how data pipelines are made, which technology, etc., everything is now in responsibility of a domain. And they just need to have those, we call this, that interoperability interfaces between them. And now, crucial point, data mesh is not technological. Technology is easy part. We all know, we all are engineers, and we all know technology is easy part. Data mesh wants you to be reorganized business-wise, You need to say those guys from different departments that they are now becoming responsible for what data analytics workload. And now let's start with the data mesh concepts. I think it will be beneficial for us for the rest of discussion. Like 80% of everything is key terms. And these are key terms of data mesh. What makes distinction between, someone who started and someone who is expert is this 20%. And that is thing. But this is very important. Only 4 terms you need to understand. And first is domain ownership. Okay, we understand. Domain ownership is that domain are now responsible for their data. Second is data product. We start to incorporate product thinking into our data. Every our product, is we know where our product lives, how long will it take, how we will share it, etc., etc. These terminology terms are pretty simple. What is my goal today? To explain you this maybe more complex and not so natural things. like federated governance and self-serve analytics. What is federated governance? So because you have so many domains, you do not want to have Wild West. If you give freedom, everybody, to work what they want, then we will have Wild West. So federated governance is a set of principles that follow data mesh implementation and that are important to keep things in order in data mesh. We agree about some common set of standard principles, how you want, that will be the same for all the domains. And that's how we start. And then self-serve analytics. We want first the data platform team, data engineers start to be data platform team. They will be domain agnostic. They will not care about, specifics of a domain itself. They will just give their best to establish federated governance principles inside data mesh. And that is like everything. And now my goal is to just all other slides for you to understand federated governance and self-service analytics, or how we approach that. But first, set of principles that are not data analytics related, that are related, for kind of that are best practice inside AWS. But in our case, when we start speaking with business, we sort of have 30 AWS accounts, and then we have, let's say, you will see, but not more than 10 AWS analytics accounts. So we ask business, what persons will work in data mesh, in a domain? And we agree that it will be only 3 persons: data analyst, data engineer, and data power user. We call them domain persona. So, for example, revenue accounting data analyst or customer services data engineer, So, now we have those domain persona, and Norwegian use Okta as a central identity provider. And then inside organizational management account, which is kind of the most important, there is IAM Identity Center. And you probably know that you can do scheme synchronization with your identity provider and kind of bring users from Okta, users and groups from Okta inside AWS. So that is scheme. And then you will use permission sets to declare what those domain persona can do with their roles inside data analytics accounts. So once revenue accounting data analysts start to work in Norwegian, that day he has all that is relevant to access AWS analytics environment. So revenue accounting data analysts will not have same permission through dev stage and prod analytics account. Neither will, data engineer and data analyst will be the same. And you will see that on next slide. So that is first principle. Second principle is automation through CI/CD. You saw, Anton, how things that are, infrastructure as a code start to become more and more important, And when we start to work, we agree about everything. No ClickOps, no one, that is also federated governance. Keep that in mind. There is no ClickOps. We will go to hell if we go ClickOps. No. If you want to deploy glue job, if you want to deploy IAM role, if you want to deploy whatever, Kinesis data stream, you will commit CloudFormation on Bitbucket. Then inside CI/CD account, which is another account we have, you have code pipeline, and code pipeline with trigger CloudFormation pipeline, let's say, and then deploy resources to dev, stage, and production account. So process is automated in the sense that when you commit to Bitbucket, it will deploy to dev, then automatically transition to stage, then manual approval for production. So if everything is okay in dev and stage, you need to manual approve your code pipeline to deploy on production. So these are only two principles that are important, that are part of federated governance principles, who will be domain persona, and how we will approach the deployment of resources to start working in data mesh. And now we are starting with real data workload. So what do you do when you do have 40 relational databases hosted outside of your, like on public hosting providers? So these domain databases can be different things, like SQL Server for bookings, like Postgres where you keep your flight data. Even, for example, Sybase ASA, where you keep your aircraft operations data. So we use database migration services. And as you all know, probably you know, that inside database migration services, you have that concept of database migration tasks. And you will just connect to source database with secrets manager. So there is where credentials for database exist. And now important thing, only domain data power user can read a secret for that domain. Yet at the moment, we understand who are the persons that can, change a secret. No data engineer or data analyst can do that. We are now doing to improve that. And of course, only your CloudFormation template can read this secrets manager, when it deploys a database migration task. And then from operational database, we stream data to S3 data lake, where we have archival storage. And we kind of do process, probably you all know what is CDC, or change data capture. So every insert, update, delete on operational tables will come into data lake. So we stream either to S3 data lake or to Amazon Redshift. Amazon Redshift directly, if we have that latency sensitive use cases, which are not so many. We do not have them so many. So we stream from operational database with using AWS DMS to only those two targets, S3 data lake, we call it raw data, and Amazon Redshift. And when you have 40 operational database, things will fail, like 40 of them. So you need to take care seriously about observability, how you will approach observability. And we do approach it with using CloudWatch and, of course, EventBridge. On EventBridge, we receive DMS events. So, for example, this operational database is not available, VPN connection is down. And then we trigger EventBridge and send notification to Slack channel to domain team for them to understand that DMS task is not working anymore. Even more, if no one reacts, we use Lambda for restarts. We just want to restart task to be more automated, So also have two paths when we detect a problem. So this is again self-service analytics. Now domain team needs only to deploy DMS task. Observability is kind of finished, When you deploy your DMS task, there is only one DMS instance. We will speak about later about common services. But they just need to deploy DMS task. And everything is already prepared for them. So that is part of self-service analytics. And when we have data in a raw data lake, we of course need to process them. And now we see this second account. But for the sake of simplicity, let's not look at that governance account. Let's look at only these analytic accounts. So you have a data lake. And you want to have metadata about data. Okay, what table, what column, what is the type of a column? So on schedule, you will start domain crawler. Domain crawler will detect the format of data and put that into domain catalog. And then you will use glue job or step function if you have something more complex, but let's say glue job, to transform join data and to put that into Redshift. Look, this glue domain role and Redshift IAM domain role, it will be relevant later. So only glue job as step functions, if you want more complex, like you need one Lambda, you need EMR, you need some other service, then you can, make some pretty complex workflows. And that's how we approach processing. And from a raw data lake, we go to something which we call conformed, which is Redshift IAM domain role. But don't forget, there are so many domains and so many people. We need to check who can access what in a data lake. And we do that by governance, using governance account. So who from you use lake formation? No one. Okay. So it's kind of pretty advanced. We are here speaking about guys that are crazy big enterprise. I asked, who is from enterprise. So those guys from enterprise, they, especially airlines, they just care aircraft not to fall. And then everything is, not to, everything needs to be totally secure. Culture of security is like spread through enterprise. And in airline industry, you need to be secure, you need to guarantee. And that is this governance layer. In governance layer, in lake formation, it's pretty simple service. It deals with your data lake. Pretty simple. How? You have concept of tags. So you have domain tag, which can have different value. And domain tag can have value like revenue accounting, aircraft operations, customer services, ground services, whatever domain is. PII tag. Can someone guess what is PII? Personal identifiable information. So whether your table from bookings, where you have one column which is called customer first name, and another column which is called customer last name, or customer email. So you can use PII tag to set this database, this table, this column, PII equal to true. And that's all we do. What is domain for database? What is domain for column? What is domain for table? What is PII for database, whether it has PII? What is for table? What is for column? And now, we bring all identities from analytic accounts, like this glue domain role. So what can process glue domain role? Or this Redshift IAM domain role, which is less important. But those things are called here lake formation principal identifiers. So we can say a revenue accounting glue domain role cannot read PII tag in customer services domain. So pretty simple. That is again federated governance, you see. Or even like self-serve analytics, because when new domain come, we again have that glue domain role for that domain, and we again can very fast, detect what that glue domain role can do or cannot do. So one important thing I forgot to say that there is a way to sync this domain catalog with governance data catalog. We think it is called resource links. But basically, whatever lives in your domain data catalog will live in your governance data catalog. So that was transformation. Now reporting. Probably you expected, fancy graphics, etc., but no. So as Anton said, I'm on 25 minutes, only have, few more slides, so prepare your questions. So this is SSO domain role, and you all know to read permissions, So this is this guy, revenue accounting data engineer. So revenue accounting data engineer can do what? Get cluster credentials with IAM. So with IAM, with the revenue accounting data engineer, get cluster credentials and get ordinary cluster credentials. On what resources? If you know to read this IRN, inside production cluster, there is user that is called revenue accounting. So this role can connect to Redshift via revenue accounting. This role, this guy, when he connects to Redshift from SQL Editor V2, he will connect to revenue accounting. Where are credentials? There are no exchange of credentials. Where is password? No password. So the moment this guy starts to work, by magic, he connects to his Redshift user, which is revenue accounting. And what he is granted to do as a revenue accounting user, he can do inside as a revenue accounting user in Redshift. Can read this or cannot read this, etc., etc. So this is again self-serve data analytics. Because those guys we do not have credentials. We do not use passwords. This guy, revenue accounting, create user revenue accounting inside Redshift, whatever that SQL script is, I cannot recall. So with password, no. No one can access that, only this SSO domain role. So for every domain, we do have domain user inside Redshift. And now, let's see complexity in a slide. First, top left, CI/CD account. We already spoke. Cloud formation, code pipeline, pipelines, and code build for kind of things that needs to go through build. But what is important, we have 465 code pipelines. 465. I do not know whether I told you, but this is not story made in 2 months. We work for Norwegian 4 years. So that's important for you to know. We didn't do any magic, but we have 465 code pipelines. It goes easy, Who works with cloud formation? Cloud formation is totally easy. I just don't know why people do not use that. You can copy. Either way, you do that with GenAI things, Just you copy, you see what is that YAML template. Template YAML is kind of like pretty easy. Python is more complex. You all probably do Python or SQL. SQL is crazy complex. Cloud formation, no. You can read a template, and I bet, like in 10 minutes, in 2 days, in 1 week, you will understand all what these guys are doing it in code pipelines. Then we have that federated governance account, which is sort of controlling actors in a data mesh. And from left side, we have domains. Domains, of course, have tags. We have tags. We have this governance data catalog with these tags. And then we have domain account. When we start working, we kind of we would like to have account for every domain. But we will have dev, stage, and prod account for every domain. So, and governance, so 6 accounts for every domain. Count the number of domains, multiply by 6, and that is the number of accounts. So we decided to be in this, let's say, sort of centralized hub model, having only 3, or in this picture, only 1 account, which is domain account. But it is kind of crazy written. It should be analytics account. Hope that makes sense for you. So we have only 3 accounts. We will not want to go to that level of separation, like for every account to have, for every domain to have 3 accounts. And then these are our ingestion services. We already spoke about AWS DMS, which is very important, of course, because relational databases are the core of things we as data engineers do. But other things are AWS file transfer. So, for example, daily sales during flights. So when you fly, you can buy coffee, whiskey, beer, whatever. So it comes as a files, and we are using AWS file transfer to, kind of receive those files. Then we have sort of events, streaming events that we, external data sources which act as events, and then we stream that to Kinesis Firehose, and then again to Data Lake. Then, of course, Lambda. For example, when you book a flight, you can also take Expedia booking. So Expedia, who maybe there are somebody who knows, Expedia booking has API which you call. So we use Lambda, for the API calls. And then in Elastic Container Service, when you also fly, you can rent a car, and then there is some kind of Java API that you need to call, and then we have container service for that. And then, of course, AppFlow. Don't know whether someone of you used AppFlow, but for example, Zendesk, you can use AppFlow for those type of things, like Zendesk is, and we use it, I think, for Zendesk, maybe one more. And then data go to data lake / domain. Whatever is domain, the data go to like S3, data lake bucket / revenue accounting, aircraft operations, etc., etc. And then we have this processing account. I just added this simple notification service here in this processing thing, because we also have SNS and Slack, like we show in DMS for this kind of processing notifications. And then we have these common services which are domain agnostic, like CloudWatch. We just do not have anything inside CloudWatch that is kind of security implementation, do not care. And we call those services as a common services. To some extent, AWS DMS is also common services, but, I think its larger part is data ingestion. Of course, Secrets Manager, Systems Manager. And then reporting, and for reporting, we use Redshift, we use Power BI Gateway, because people tend to work with Power BI. So in every company you come, and when you say to them, we have very fancy, kind of data visualization tool, it's called QuickSight. Oh, no, mate. We are working Power BI. So Power BI, people just get used. Indeed, that's a great tool. Let's be honest. It's a great tool. It has its own, like Microsoft, but it's a good tool, and people do use it, So because our Redshift is in public subnet, we need to use this Power BI gateway to enable people. So gateway lives in public subnet, and basically you can connect with that gateway to Redshift. So that's how they approach data visualization. We also use Athena for querying data lake, and of course QuickSight, from time to time, just becoming more popular, And now let's go through kind of example how data goes through system. So I just choose flight service and weather API. So you have flights. And then flights are in aircraft operations. So DMS listens, send to S3. You have weather API. You will pull data, send to S3. That will trigger, usually on event notification, that will trigger glue job. Glue job will kind of make what it needs to make, clean, join, and send it to Redshift. So we are speaking about, let's be kind of honest, 1 hour from data produced to the data ready to consume. And we have 2 months. So how much we are faster? Like 300 times, I don't know, but what's the point? What else is very important here is that actually domain pretty fast domain starts to, be kind of impressed with this, with AWS, starting to work. So domain engineers very fast when they come to, Bitbucket repo, very fast they understand the thing. We were also very excited about that, and surprised to some extent, people really do enjoy and work. Yeah, and now let's go to results. So this is picture from our data catalog, 186 databases. So not all is relational database, let's be clear. We have 10 to 20 data sources, which is one table or one API call, kind of complex JSON, 1, 2, 3 tables. But we have 186 databases in data catalog. When there is a new column, alter, we know. When they drop a column, we know. So that is important. We have 11 domains. Coming back on that story with having 3 accounts, dev stage for every domain, so 66 accounts. But we have 11 domains. We started with 3. And very fast, because of this self-serve analytics and kind of principles that are pretty similar for everybody, and these domain personas and this federated governance, we very fast scale other domain. Tomorrow we have a new domain, no problem. 50 data products. And what's important, and just to stress, we use Confluence for our data products. So every documentation is in Confluence. We just cannot find a smarter way to keep our data products, our documentation about database documentation that deals with, port database, where it's hosted, what is that database name, etc., etc. So everything lives in Confluence. So domains work in Confluence, they work there, data product job by documentation lives there. And we quite heavily rely on documentation and Jira. So for example, if you do not have documentation in Confluence about whatever you do, you cannot close the task. That was my, issue once when we start to work. No documentation, mate, reopen a Jira task. What do we want? We want to be transparent, We are going back to that doggy. We want to be serious. Nothing is fine, in enterprise. We have 70 Redshift users, close to 1 million daily queries. We have 100 plus different reports, not to mention 100 terabytes of data, old information, maybe a little more, and 103 domain persona. So that's it. We have this raw, enriched, and conformed database. We can speak about that and how we approach that. And yeah, I think 39 minutes. Thank you. Thank you so much. And please, let's connect, let's share experience. I think, giving back community is very important, and that's why I'm here today. Let's connect, let's share experiences. I cannot promise that I will answer your question about CloudFormation 3 a.m., but I will read at least. So let's connect on LinkedIn. Enjoy Sofia so far, me and guys. Thank you again. And now questions.
You showed a lot of materials more related to IAM governance, identity federation, etc. Would you say that was more challenging than the actual data processing part, like introducing this model of federated identity, etc., or was it really the data part which was challenging?
Yeah, I need to tell you, we are data platform team. So over there in Norwegian, we are data platform team. Most of the things that are SSO, etc., is a platform team. So we work quite close with them. But actually, SSO was implementation from. I worked on SSO, and for me, kind of easier is data work. You know, these permission sets, then how. How much these short credentials do last. It's pretty important, so no many SSO roles do have more than 1 hour. That's kind of pretty interesting with kind of Redshift users, because they start to work with their domain SSO domain roles, and because they have kind of credentials for 1 hour, they were complaining. They were losing credentials. They started to work on SQL, and then all of a sudden they just lose connection. And then we wanted to kind of increase that on more than 1 hour, and we speak with platform, and then we work on that part as well. But for me, it's just more natural to work with DMS Redshift sort of glue.
I see. Thanks.
No questions. Come on. Just relax. Like, this is not. There are so many crazy things again. You know what is crazy? You understand that there is a domain without people. And then you have one John who is in 3 domains. That is issue as well. So that's kind of. We agree. I think it is important to have a name for a thing that you are making. So you are not the only guy in a world with a problem. So probably someone already solved your problem. And we start to believe that data mesh is kind of, solution for all our problems. And we start to name it like that. That is why we become kind of sort of productive, But there are so many challenges as well. Like, organization just had that. I didn't speak. There's on one slide, there is tribal knowledge. When you ask them, okay, but who keeps this information? They will say John or Jane or whatever. That is tribal knowledge. People that have knowledge in their head, not documented. They are working in several domains. They're great guys, They actually help us a lot. But this solution also is I will be again honest with you, Norwegian kind of become very big in after post-COVID, and then they acquire several companies. One of companies they acquire is called Videro. And they are now thinking whether, business is thinking. That is kind of problematic always. Business is thinking about technology, I think we have a great stuff, but we are not sure that enterprise will, enterprise guys. We have a problem, I do not care. Solve it. Enterprise. Oh, well. DMS in early days, DMS, when we have one very, very big database, which is called this revenue accounting database, that is that SQL server. And then it's crazy big. I cannot recall how many terabytes of data that thing has, but has like several tables that then more than few 100 million rows. And then we use this full OCDC approach. And one moment we just lose connection. There was some, feature improvement over database, new software version, we lose connection. And then we needed to do it all from the beginning. And then we just consider how we will approach these things. That's maybe biggest disaster because we get those users to consume. And then I think we need like 3 and 4 days to come back with these reports because of that update. And then we learn how to scale that. So when we are doing that full load, we usually have that full load that is separated from CDC, or when we work full load, we try to target timestamp table and then to filter to say, for example, 2020 one task, 2021 another, 2022. So if we stay without database that we cannot recover, then just to work with CDC to be faster. That was the challenge. Power BI is always the challenge. We now have that system manager. You saw that system manager. So let me just. We in system manager we have sort of a run command, which will try to read the current status of CPU and memory utilization on Power BI, because thing is crazy. Sometimes things work, but software is not working, and then we needed to approach it with run command to every 5 minutes we read CPU and memory consumption. If it is 0, then we trigger notification, and that's approach. Because so many data analysts and business people are on Power BI reports. So when Power BI is unavailable or reporting is unavailable, so we are in problem. Managers do not see reports, they cannot. So again, these data guys, etc., etc. Sorry? No, we thought about that. We thought that it will be good idea for us to have because we had only 3 domains, but early days we understood that it will, make a thing complex. Having different, it will be the best, let's say, separation wise, it will be the best. But then we also thought, and you all know, S3 is a global resource, and everything that AWS built around S3. So if I go S3 Bojan is unique and global, so unique and global IRN. So then we thought, okay, we have that centralized S3 bucket with the policies and things. Okay, let's keep this central S3 bucket and then this central analytics domain, account, like dev stage and prod. And then we will see, and then as workload grows, we just, decided we will keep only 3 accounts. That was the idea. Now that comes to some sort of issues in a Redshift layer, because in a Redshift layer, we do have conformed and enriched schemas, So row is S3, that is external. And then you process it to have that conformed. And then there are some issues in Redshift because so many actors, and how we actually approach Redshift. Of course, we have that domain users, but there are some, sort of issues with having so many schemas inside one Redshift. Now we think about, you all know that Redshift can do data sharing. Now we think about, having in those accounts, having different Redshifts for different domains so they can share. That's what we think about, and where we see that, our initial architecture might, have some flows. So that's it. If not, any questions, thank you again.